The COVID-19 crisis widening the gap between rich and poor. A study by Oxfam has revealed billionaires having increased their wealth over the past year. For a closer look on this, we are joined now by Amitabh Behar, the CEO of Oxfam India. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Mr. Behar. First up, we know that the pandemic has widened the inequality, but can you just paint us a picture of, the people who are most affected? Who are they, their gender, their ethnicity?
Sure. So as in this, the report that we have is called the Inequality virus. And I think it's aptly called Inequality virus because it tells us how inequality is as deadly as the COVID virus. We've seen in the last 1 year, people lose their loved ones. More than 1.5 million people have died. Many more millions have actually lost their livelihood. And this has really hit the poorest of the poor, the ordinary people across the globe. But what we're seeing at the top is a very, very different story. If you just look at the top 10 billionaires of the world, they have actually added $500 billion to their kitty during the pandemic. So $500 billion added to their wealth. Let me just give you one more statistics. 1,000 top billionaires actually took just 9 months to recover from the hit they took because of the pandemic. And they're back in 9 months to the pre-pandemic levels in terms of their wealth. But almost all studies, including the World Bank, is telling us that the poor and ordinary people will take at least a decade to come back to the pre-pandemic level. So that's the level of inequality we are seeing. And then it also has a clear gender dimension to it. It also has ethnic and racial minorities are the ones who are getting much more affected by this. Just let me give you one figure on that. In US, 22,000 fewer deaths would have happened amongst the Black and Hispanic communities if the mortality rate for COVID was same among these communities and their white counterparts. So what you're looking at is inequality has actually grown. And on the other hand, it also has a clear race and gender dimension to it.
So, Mr. Behar, millions more have been impacted by poverty, but where in Asia is this inequality now most pronounced?
So, our study does not specifically look at Asia, but I come from India and I can tell you the story is again devastating. The top 11 billionaires in this country actually have added so much to their wealth that they could have sustained the Indian Ministry of Health for 10 years. So it is a story which runs across. So it is essentially a story, I would say, of a rigged economic system which lines the pockets of billionaires where billions of people are struggling to get food to their table.
Now, Mr. Behar, you've mentioned as well that, ideally governments have to act, and that includes, taxing the billionaires and the corporations. So if, let's say, tomorrow you have the chance to meet, Mr. Ambani, and what is your wish list to him to help us narrow this inequality divide?
So let me just say that, it's not personal. It is not about Mukesh Ambani. It is about an economic system which is actually making the billionaires even more wealthy. So to Mr. Mukesh Ambani and all the billionaires, I would really urge them to ensure that they pay a fair share. As in, there is a Tax Justice Network study which says that every year, $425 billion are lost by governments because of tax dodging. I think it's important that individuals, corporates pay the fair share of their taxes. And let me also say, these are absolutely unprecedented times. We need unprecedented actions, and we must start looking at, say, wealth tax, at least a specific cess for COVID recovery. And this is not going to be unique if a government starts it. Argentina has already started it. I'm told that in South Korea, in Vietnam, the idea of now looking at inequality as a central question in the post-COVID recovery is very, very important.
Mr. Behar, thank you very much for your perspective. on these very startling statistics from this Oxfam report. Amitabh Behar there from Oxfam India.